Good morning, everyone. Hope you are doing well and okay. It's me, Faz, bringing you this morning's live show from the studio. Lots to get onto on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Today's the day, the big day, Champions League day. We are finally back into the Champions League, playing Bayern Munich away. A lot of people are feeling down. A lot of people are feeling upset. They feel like we're not ready. The traveling squad does not look strong enough to go and face Bayern Munich, but so much, absolutely so much has come out from Rob Dawson, who spoke to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I don't know when the interview was done, but it is absolutely baffled my head. I'm going to be very passionate, very honest, very straight up with you guys, as I always am. So strap in, get your coffee, tea, green tea, herbal tea, whatever you need, because I promise you, you are going to need it. There's also some bits about Evan Ferguson, Manchester United trying to get Evan Ferguson as well. But straight off, I'm going to get into the biggest of the topic that Ole Gunnar spoke on, is about Jadon Sancho, who is currently our player who's obviously been sent away by Erik ten Hag last season to go and get himself right. This season, he's had a huge public bust-up between himself and Jadon Sancho as well. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came out and said Jadon Sancho prefers to play on the left wing. This is absolutely laughable. This is absolutely laughable. How have you brought a player to play on the right wing, and now you have come out and said we've not seen the best of Jadon Sancho, and he prefers to play on the left wing where Marcus Rashford plays? There's actually just so much stuff that's come out, so many quotes. I'm going to try and get into as many quotes as I can, break down as many quotes as I can. There's even hints of him trying to kind of imply that he wasn't backed fully, that there wasn't enough funds that was made available to him for him to go and buy certain players that he wanted. He even speaks on the empty stadiums. He speaks on egos. He speaks on Ronaldo. He speaks on his feeling towards Manchester United and how it went, him losing the final. It's a lot. It is an absolute lot. Get your chats in nice and early. I'll try and read as many as I can. This is going to leave a lot of fans divided. This is going to leave a lot of fans having a lot of question marks. But the first thing I'll start off with is the Jadon Sancho one that he's gone and mentioned. And he said exactly what he said is, we haven't seen the best of Jadon Sancho. He prefers to play on the right. He prefers to play on the left wing where Marcus plays. I don't know what you guys feel about it. I'll be very honest. For me, I feel like this is the timing of what this is coming out isn't helping Manchester United one single bit. How are you going to play Jadon Sancho on the left wing when we've got Marcus Rashford, who doesn't get subbed off even when he's having a terrible game? When we've got Marcus Rashford, who's at 30 GA, plus GA last season. How? And what were you thinking when you had Jadon Sancho under your wing? Because you couldn't get the best out of him as well. So why are you now coming out and saying he prefers to play XYZ position? I mean, he's going to talk. Probably the NDA has run out. Probably, you know, his commitment to Manchester United and not speaking out has come out, whatever it is. But he's talking. And surprise, surprise, what if now he's held out until now to really vent and let it all off from his chest and get it all off his shoulders and then go and get a managerial job somewhere? There's a couple of super chats nice and early that I'm going to bring up. Nick says, thank you very much, Nick, for your early contribution. Says, why are we hearing from jobless Ole right now? Who else wants to come out of the woodwork when we are losing to have their say? Maybe Jose wants another go. Blame shifting managers trying to save face. I don't know what it's going to be. Is this saving face? Like I say, this is going to leave a lot of fan base divided. There are still fans who think Ole Gunnar was done by wrongly. He wasn't back probably. And, you know, listen, there's some truth to that, 100%. But the fact is, he didn't play as well as we hoped. He had the players that he brought in. He had Ronaldo, and now he's even throwing Ronaldo under the bus as well, saying, you know, what has he said about Ronaldo? He said, at the time, it felt right to get Ronaldo, but it didn't work out well. I'm going to get the exact quotes. I mean, let's just start off with the first one because there's so many. The first one, right? Ole Gunnar says, you start to miss professional football. You start to miss it, professional football, when you see the games either in person or on television. Since I left Manchester United, I've travelled around as a fan with my kids, going to places like Napoli, Milan, Dortmund to experience the game. We loved it. Well, Ole, if you're such a great manager, I mean, why aren't clubs hell-bent on signing you and making you their manager? Let's be very honest. He also says, my role with UEFA means watching Champions League matches in person. I watch teams from a different perspective than being a manager, analyse them, solve problems, see how both teams will try to hurt each other. What? You're trying to solve problems? What problems were you solving when you were in Manchester United? You couldn't solve a problem with Ronaldo scoring 18 Premier League goals for you, and now you're coming out and saying, I don't understand. I really don't understand. He also says, Ole Gunnar, on if he wants to manage again, he says, yes, and I've had offers. I wonder from who? Most recently from Saudi. My best mate, who is also my agent, sifts through them. If you managed Manchester United, you put your own criteria about what you want to work with. Well, he's blowing his own trumpet there, isn't he? He's saying, look, I manage Manchester United. I have my own criteria. I've managed one of the biggest clubs in the world. I know what I'm doing. So if clubs come out to offer me a contract, it is going to be on my terms, not theirs. And now he says, you know, Saudi Arabia came out to sign him, and if that was the case, why didn't you go and do something with Saudi Arabia? Let's be honest. Does Ole Gunnar? I feel like Ole Gunnar thinks he's a Premier League level manager. There's certain things that he did with Manchester United that may prove that he's a Premier League level manager. But if that's the case, why aren't clubs coming to sign him? This is the most important thing. It's been years since he's left Manchester United, and he's working with UEFA. He says, what I miss the most is working with good people, coming in every day, discussing football and putting a plan together for the next game. It's not just about formation, but creating a culture where the staff enjoy their job and building a team together. There's something missing, a trophy. One Plenty could have changed that in the shootout defeat against Villarreal in Europa League final he's referring to, and my time would have been viewed differently. You can just sense the bitterness, and it's almost like Heartbreak FC. He clearly feels heartbroken that he was let go, and he clearly feels that if certain games, for example, this Villarreal game, if he had won that game, people would have said, oh, well, he won a Europa League. He's won a European trophy. That's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for you. Trophies are important, but it was also important to lay the foundation of good performances. We managed to do that for a long time consistently. Ultimately, that's not good enough. But the remit I was given was to get fans smiling again, and we had something going. We are top of the league in September 2021. Cristiano Ronaldo came in, and Varane and Jadon Sancho joined. And I remember when Cristiano, Varane and Jadon Sancho joined Manchester United, I remember the buzz around Manchester United fans. We were all thinking, you know what, myself included, we were thinking we might have a chance at this. We might have a shot at winning the Premier League. We might have a shot at challenging. And it's at the end of the day, it's the manager's job to make the orchestra play in sync. And he failed. That's the fundamental thing, is he failed. He also says, and we'd gone strong by signing these players. It was about taking the next step to challenge for the title. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. He then goes on to say about Ronaldo, he says, it was a decision that was very difficult to turn down, and I felt we had to take it, but it turned out wrong. How could you? What do you mean it turned out wrong? What do you mean it turned out wrong with Ronaldo? Why would you be saying that now? I'm sure, look, Ronaldo won't come out and throw you under the bus. I'm sure of that. But he's coming out and saying, it's almost like he wasn't confident about making the signing. It was a decision that was very difficult to turn down. What do you mean difficult? It's Cristiano Ronaldo. There's nothing difficult about that. Unless there's things about him saying he wanted Erling Haaland, obviously Evan Ferguson as well. There's talks about that. Manchester United putting a bid in. I'll get into that in a bit. But the biggest one is he wanted Erling Haaland, and Manchester United didn't end up going and getting Erling Haaland, and Man City did. So is that the thing? Is that what you wanted instead? It also felt right when he signed, and the fans felt that the Newcastle game when Old Trafford was rocking, Ronaldo's debut, and we won 4-1, he was still one of the biggest goal scorers in the world. He was looking strong. Well, obviously, but again, it's your job to make it work. It was your job to make sure that the team play around Ronaldo, that he's getting the service. It was your job to make sure you set out the right formations. It's your job to make sure you're doing the right team talk. But you failed again and again. There was a lot of yo-yo performances and it didn't work. It didn't work. Not now, Dave says, to many club signings, not managers, Jose said he didn't want Fred, Ole didn't want Donny, maybe Sancho was another, alongside Weghorst and Sabitzer. Nick with another contribution says he's basically used our poor form to put out a video version of his CV to get a job in Saudi. If we won the first 5 games, he would have posted his CV. Thank you very much, Nick, for your contribution. Ole Gunnar also said, there's so much. I'm going to read through every single one of them for you, every single one. When you have a group, you need everyone to pull in the same direction. When things don't go right, you could see certain players and egos came out. We beat Tottenham convincingly 3-0 away, but then we lost 2 games. Well, again, he's mentioning egos. Who could these egos be? Is this him mentioning, I don't know, Cristiano? Who is he trying to mention? Because it makes me question the players that we have now from years on. Is it Bruno? It can't be Bruno. I don't think it's Bruno. Is it Rashford? Who is the egos? And for him to say certain things, that there's egos that come out, what were you doing to manage these egos? How were you getting these egos under control? Were there not egos when Sir Alex Ferguson was in charge of Manchester United, who you played under? And we consider you, of course, we consider Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a legend of the club as a player, He has a dedicated song. We love Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a player. But why were you not able to control these egos and channel that energy onto the pitch? That is the fundamental of your job. And if you did have egos, why didn't you make it blatant by dropping them or selling them? Why not? This is the question that I asked to all of you in the chat. Ole says, nobody told me, but I knew at halftime against Watford, when we lost 4-1, we didn't look like a Manchester United team. Players weren't running for each other. At halftime, I told the players it was probably going to be the last time we worked together. What? At halftime, I told the players it was probably going to be the last time we worked together and play with pride. We almost turned it around until Harry Maguire got sent off. Oh my goodness. I need to have a glass of water. This is going to make me dizzy. Why would you tell a bunch of players that it's the last time you're going to work with them at half time? Like, what difference? What difference is that going to make? This is what I mean. There's questions about him not being back. There's questions about him wanting certain players, Bellingham and all of these players. But you're telling the players at half-time, right, lads, we might lose this game, or it's not looking good today, but just to make you all aware, I'm leaving. This is the last time I'm going to work with all of you. Are you being serious? Like, is this what you don't do that to a bunch of players at half-time? Are you being deadly serious? This is making me angry more than anything. I got a text message the next morning from Ed Woodward saying he needed to see me in his office at Carrington. That was pretty hard when you've been at the club for 18 years with all those good and bad times. I'd had lots of backing and good times with Ed Woodward. He'd given me the chance, and for that, I'll always be grateful. I dropped my family at the airport before the text arrived. After the text, I told my wife that I might be back in Norway before her. He could see it coming. You could see, by the way, when he left as well, he was so emotional. And he says as well, on the day he got sacked, he says it was an emotional day, very emotional. I didn't think it would be, but it was like leaving your family. I wanted to speak to all the players and say goodbye. I mean, you've had said goodbye at halftime against Watford. You'd said goodbye to them anyways. You had a feeling that this was going to happen. The fact that as a manager, you have a feeling that you are going to get sacked says everything that I need to know. If you were confident and able to portray that confidence into the players and make them believe, then sure, but you didn't. This shows to me the lack of fight that you had in yourself as a manager. You didn't back yourself as a manager. That's why you told the players that this might be the last time I'm working with you at half time. I spoke to the coaches and the staff, then I went back to an empty house. I mean, oh my goodness, he's just really trying to make it emotional, isn't he? On his goodbye video, he says, I didn't want to say goodbye to the fans who treated me so well, fans who felt like family. Doing the video felt like the right thing to do. And he says, I'm not angry, not bitter, but I'm disappointed. I'd not managed to do my dream job as I hoped. I'd gone in to do a job for 6 months and enjoy it. I certainly did, especially that win at PSG, a stunning, 3-1 win when we had won against PSG in Champions League last 16 in March 2019 to reach the quarter-finals. I mean, I remember Rio Ferdinand saying, sign the contract, give him as many zeros, whatever it is. Ole as well, he says, and there were some great moments when I got the job permanently. The wins against City away, beating City at home, with Scott McTominay scoring with the last kick before the lockdown. I've never felt Old Trafford rocking like that. The fans stayed behind for ages. As it happens, that was the last time they'd be in the stadium for many months. Another win at PSG, staying unbeaten away from home for so long. It's not easy to go 29 away league games unbeaten. I mean, yeah, he did some good things as well. You have to give him credit. When he beat PSG, nobody thought he could do that. The famous picture of Rashford consolidating Mbappe. Empty stadiums actually helped us in some ways as we could coach during the matches. Those City and Liverpool teams were the best that their clubs, with fantastic managers, have ever had. I know that that's a bold statement because Liverpool were so good. Liverpool were so good in the 80s, but they were a fantastic side under Jurgen Klopp. In my last season, we played Liverpool at home. I felt the players were ready for it, just like I'd felt they were ready when we'd gone to City and won. We could have sat back and counted, but my decision was to go for it. We lost 5-0. It was 50-50, more or less, in possession and chances at half-time, yet we were 4-0 down. What do you make of this? What do you make of this? How do you tell me that you felt it was 50-50, but the scoreline says it's 4-0? The scoreline says it's 4-0. And again, you wanted to go machine for machine with Liverpool at home. And I remember that game as well. I really do. I traveled a lot of miles for that game because I was out of town. And I came to see that game and I was absolutely, I've never wanted to leave a game at half time. Never in my life did I want to leave a game at half time. And he wanted to play possession-based football against Liverpool, knowing that's not his strengths. A man with a super chat says, at least Ole knew how to win against big teams and rivals. Come on, let's not do this. Big teams and rivals. James says, you ask how he could control the egos. Mourinho and Van Gaal struggled with the egos because the club didn't back the managers. How United work. But you keep saying the club didn't back the manager. And yes, the club might not have backed the manager in terms of a transfer perspective, but it's still the manager's job to control the egos in the changing room. And again, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wanted to drop a certain player, he should have done that if he felt like he was a hindrance to the squad, and he didn't. But the timing, like I say, the timing of all of this coming out is almost perfect from a PR standpoint for any journalist for them to put this out. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on if the Manchester United job is impossible. He says no, but it's difficult, especially for managers following one of the best managers ever. The expectations are very high, but we can't live in the same era as when I played. We had Arsenal and Chelsea rivals towards the end. Now most teams have money, or even if they don't need to sell. He says, back then, Wayne and Cristiano were the best young players, and we signed them. Now Manchester United can't go and buy Evan Ferguson. We couldn't buy the players I mentioned to the club. This is absolutely massive. So he's basically saying it. There's lots to take from this. Back in the day, we signed Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo. And now Manchester United can't go and get Evan Ferguson. Rob Dawson had put out that Manchester United made a bid for 50 million for Evan Ferguson, which got rejected. the owners, this now, I'm going to shift the conversation to the owners and the board. They are so incompetent, so incompetent. They constantly overspend. They constantly undervalue players and undersell players. And that's the one thing I'll give to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is if there is any truth to him saying he wanted certain players, for example, Erling Haaland, he says we discussed Moise Caicedo, but we felt we needed players ready for there and then. If he felt he needed certain players and the board and the owners didn't feel like they could give the funds for us to sign those players, that speaks volumes. That does. But nonetheless, he did have players that he still could have got results out of, and he failed. That you can't change that, whether you like it or not. You cannot change that. He says Erling Haaland, before he made his Salzburg debut, Declan Rice, who wouldn't have cost what he did in the summer. We discussed Moise Caicedo. Brighton are very good at letting players come from abroad and find their feet for a year and a half. At United, you don't have that luxury, and that has cost the club loads of players. I'm glad that he can say that, but him saying he wanted Erling Haaland, Declan Rice, Caicedo, all of these other players, I don't know what to make of this. I really don't. Is it that you wanted those players and you had a vision and it didn't work because you're saying that it was a difficult decision to bring in Cristiano Ronaldo, but it felt right? On the other side, you're saying you brought in, Jadon Sancho to play as a right winger, but now you're saying he prefers to play on the left. Like, did you not have this conversation before you bought Jadon Sancho? Make it make sense. He also says, I wanted Jude Bellingham badly. He's a Manchester United player, but I respect he chose Dortmund. That was probably sensible, but it's why I respect Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Dan James and Jadon. Young players prepared to come into a team that wasn't 100%. That wasn't 100% there. Like it was when I arrived. Okay, so basically he's saying, certain players, they came, they believed in the process, but players like Jude Bellingham didn't, and Jude Bellingham rejected Manchester United. Well, if that was the case, then so be it. What can we do? We're under an ownership, and we're under this board. The training facilities are in disarray. I mean, a player like Jude Bellingham going to Dortmund, well, clearly it was the right decision for him because look how his career turned out. Imagine if Jude Bellingham came to Manchester United. All of these big-name players that also Ole is mentioning, there's nothing to say that these players come to Manchester United and do really well. There's nothing to say that as well, because we buy big-name players and they end up turning out bad anyways. We don't get the best out of them. We don't. Ole Gunnar on Harry Kane as well. He says, I would have signed Kane every day of the week, and my understanding was that he wanted to come. But the club didn't have the budget with the financial constraints from COVID-19. There was no bottomless pit. There was no cash for him to go and get Harry Kane. He wanted the biggest names possible to make it work, and he wasn't backed. How does that make you feel? How do you guys feel listening to him wanting Bellingham, Kane, Haaland, Caicedo? How does that make you feel? I mean, him wanting Erling Haaland he's been known for a long time, but Bellingham rejected us blatantly. And the Glazers, they didn't get Harry Kane, COVID-19 funds, but now COVID-19 is gone. Manchester United are back to making money, but we're still broke because of how the club is run. We could have gone, Harry Kane also, stuff came out that Harry Kane would have waited out to come to Manchester United, but we went and got Rasmus Højlund. And Joel Glazer felt that the money was spent wisely, being spent on Rasmus Højlund, than spending 100 million on Harry Kane. And obviously Daniel Levy wouldn't have let Harry Kane go to Manchester United for anything less than 120, 130 million anyways, right? We know that already. But it's obvious and blatant that because the club isn't run properly, because we're financially in such a mess, we aren't able to go and get certain players that actually managers want. And it's funny that now I sit here telling you all of this, I feel like Erik ten Hag has been backed because he wants the player, he got the players that he wanted, but are those plan A players? Is that the plan A vision? Would the plan A have been Kim Min-jae? Would the plan A have been Todibo, Harry Kane or Victor Osimhen? But now we got Rasmus Højlund, who I'm happy with. We got Mason Mount. I've got question marks over. We got Johnny Evans on a free. I mean, make that of what you will. Some players felt they should have played more and weren't constructive to the environment. That's a huge sin for me. When I didn't start games, I wanted to prove to the manager he'd made the wrong decision. I wonder who he's referring to as well when he says some players felt they should have played more. That's very interesting. Now a lot of players aren't like that. Agents and family members get into their heads and tell them they're better than they are because they have a vested interest. It's a disease of modern football. I can agree with that, most definitely. We had a great group to work with by the end of the 2020-21 season. We got to the FA Cup semi-final in 2020 and the Europa League final in 2021. Villarreal under Unai Emery were hard to break down. I've not watched it back. You've not even watched the game back. Oh, mate, I don't know how Manchester United are letting these quotes come out today when we go and face Bayern Munich. And I promise you, if we don't beat Bayern Munich today, it is going to be an absolute media frenzy. And this actually creates a lot of pressure for Erik ten Hag going into this big fixture. A huge amount of pressure. Let me see, are there any more chats? No, there isn't. Alan says we will win today. How is Ole telling me he's not even watched the game back? How? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on his best signings, right? This is interesting. Bruno Fernandes came straight in and lifted the team. Harry Maguire, it's a disgrace that he's getting so much abuse. I feel sorry for him, but he's a strong lad and I hope it turns for him. He's raised our defense big time when he arrived and lifted the mood around the place. I can't remember every signing I made, but I should because there was a cap on 3 main ones every season. What are you... Bro, what are you talking? You don't even remember the signings you made? What? This is going from bad to worse. Oh. Ole on who put the cap on says, I signed up for it when I arrived. I understood my remit and agreed to it. I can't complain now and I'm not the type to moan after losing my job. But Manchester United have spent a lot more in the 2 summer windows since I was there. Some weren't as good as their own perception of themselves. I won't name names, but I was very disappointed when a couple turned down the chance to be captain. I was also disappointed when others said they wouldn't play or train because they wanted to force their way out. Wow. All this, and you didn't say a single peep when you were a manager. There were players who didn't want to train and play because they wanted a move, and you didn't say a single peep. Jadon Sancho hasn't performed in training, and Erik ten Hag came and said it publicly as it is. Obviously, it's caused a divide, but we're behind the manager. If you wanted our backing, if you wanted to for us to know what's going on in the changing room, how are we supposed to know this if you didn't tell us? And it could have been Pogba. A lot of people are saying it's Pogba. I could run with that. It could be Pogba. But if that's the case, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, why did you not do anything about it? Why did you not make it known to the board or just in general by listing them on the transfer market? Why? Pogba left for free. Jesse Lingard left for free. We could have made money from these players. And those funds could have been used for some of the players that you wanted. But you didn't. So what is really going on? It almost seems to me that he had lost the changing room a long time ago. If he has players, right, who he says, like, I was disappointed when a couple turned down the chance to be captain. So it's not one player. It's few players who turned down the opportunity to become the captain of the biggest club, in essence, Manchester United. You have players in your squad that are turning down the opportunity to be a captain. You have players in your squad that don't want to train and play. Yet you used them, you played them. Like, what does that tell you? It tells you he doesn't have control over his own squad. It's blatant and obvious. He didn't have control over his own players. Egos, and egos. all across the all across the squad. This is going to be fun. Ole Gunnar on Ten Hag. I know what he's going through. It's a dream job, but it's difficult. You're dealing with humans with all their problems and backgrounds. This isn't a computer simulation, but most are good professionals who want to do well. Some think about number one first, most think of the club first. This is interesting now. So this interview would have been done a couple of months ago maybe, or during the summer break, possibly. And for him to say that some think about number one first, most think of the club. So there are still the odd players, and Pogba's not here, by the way. Just Lingard's not here, by the way. So, and Harry Maguire's not being played at all. Jadon Sancho's not in the squad. So who are those players? Some think about number one first. Most think of the club. The thing is, I like certain aspects of this interview. I do. Because it's kind of telling you that there are players, there are egos and players with pride and whatever it is, big characters who have left. Ronaldo, Pogba, they've left. But there are still players here that clearly think they are better than others and that clearly think they're better than the manager or whatever it is. This is very interesting. Very, very interesting. What do you guys make of this in the chat? Let me know. Ole Gunnar on the Glazers, he says, in my conversation with them, they were honest and upfront. I had to be patient and mentally strong, and I was. And they've backed the manager now. So he's saying to Erik ten Hag has been backed. Well, has he though? Has he really been backed? Because 4 of his signings, 5 of his signings haven't been made. Todibo, Kim Min-jae, Frankie de Jong, who obviously didn't arrive, Harry Kane, Victor Osimhen, loads of players who were supposed to be, who should be Manchester United players, but they aren't. Speaking to the fans is part of being a Manchester United manager. You're encouraged to have security around you, but I didn't feel comfortable with that. Usually wanted to be on my own. Let me see, there's another one as well. I've not been back much since the whole family moved to Norway last year. People give me the thumbs up in Manchester, though. They're more likely to do that in real life. It's easier to say you're shit when you're anonymous behind a keyboard. He's absolutely going at it, isn't he? I tell you what, I would love for Ole Gunnar to have a sit down with us on the United stand, because we are the biggest fan platform in the world. If he wants to have a conversation with the fans, let's have an open conversation, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I would love to invite Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to our beautiful studio or to anywhere he wants in the world for the fans to have a conversation with Ole. Let's have a conversation. Let's speak about how you managed the egos inside the changing room. Let's speak about these players you are mentioning under Erik ten Hag that feel like they're number one. Let's speak about what you did when certain players didn't want to train or certain players rejected the captaincy armband. Let's speak about what players you wanted, what vision you had, what did the owners do. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I humbly and respectfully invite you to come to the United stand and have a conversation with us. I really do. Let's not do this, you speak about fans calling you X, Y, and Z, but let's have a respectful conversation. And let's see if you can really face some of the difficult questions that the fans have for you. Ole Gunnar on Jadon Sancho, he says, yes, I wanted to sign him. Manchester United will never sign a player the manager doesn't want. Interesting. Manchester United will never sign a player the manager doesn't want. And here we are sat saying Donny van der Beek. Donny van der Beek was the board's choice. It wasn't the manager's choice. Very interesting. So you must have wanted Donny van der Beek as well because you didn't play him as much. That's not the case everywhere. Jadon was put up as the #1 target for the right wing by the scouts. When you look at his talent, I could see why. But then you've come out and said he prefers to play on the left wing. Unfortunately, it has not worked out. When he arrived, he had to go to the hospital, and that was a setback as he couldn't start the first games. He's immensely talented and we haven't seen the best of him. I hope we do, but he prefers to play left wing where Marcus plays. So you signed him as a right winger. The scouts identified him as a right winger, but he prefers to play on the left wing. Ole Gunnar on the managerial cycle at Manchester United, he says, let's hope Eric is successful, and if there's a cycle that he breaks it, someone is going to do it. Well, there's a bit of positive from him about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yeah, it's a lot to take in this morning. It's a lot to take in. I do think, though, that speaking on this ego, and there are certain players that he believes they're number one, certain players, they look at themselves as the number one and not as a whole in terms of the team. I feel like at the moment, and take it as speculation, but this is my humble opinion, the way Marcus Rashford looks on the pitch and the way he plays, I think Marcus Rashford is the number one ego right now in Manchester United. And I feel comfortable in saying that because, surely because of what I see on the pitch. I don't see Marcus Rashford outside the pitch. I don't know what goes on in the training ground. I can't comment on that. But I feel the way he's lethargic on the pitch, it could be him. I do, because there's no Ronaldo, there's no Pogba, there's no big name characters. I don't think it's Casemiro. I don't think it's Varane. I definitely don't think it's Lisandro Martinez or, you know, Anthony. Obviously not Garnacho, Pelestri, Rasmus, Martial. I don't think it's those players. Don't forget, he's, you know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got the best out of the front three of Greenwood, Martial and Rashford. But right now, as it seems like Ole obviously knows. It seems to me that it's Marcus Rashford. And I hope it's not. I hope it's not. A lot of people are saying it's Bruno, but I feel like it can't be Bruno. Bruno Fernandes clearly took up the captaincy armband and he plays like a captain. He wears his heart on his sleeve and he works very, very hard for the team. But I don't feel like Bruno Fernandes will have an ego. He doesn't come across a character as such, especially on the pitch. Slow Sports News, who's been a member for 33 months, thank you very much, says, that's funny because last I checked, we weren't contradicted in who we can buy because of lack of funds. Keep a foot in the door. It almost seems like that as well. Keep a foot in the door. A lot of people are saying Ole is a legend. Ole is hero of 99 Champions League. Ole is most definitely a legend indeed, but as a player, but you can sense from all the quotes and all the stuff that he has said that there is a clear sign of bitterness. And he says that he's not bitter. He says that he's not angry, but he's clearly filled with emotion. He's clearly filled with so much emotion. And he says that he's at offers from numerous clubs or, you know, from Saudi or whatever. He's not mentioned anyone in Europe. Well, if that's the case, if you are emotional and bitter, why don't you go prove it? Why don't you go and prove it by being a manager elsewhere and doing well with them? Because Jose Mourinho's doing it. Austria and Ralf Rangnick are doing it. And Ralf Rangnick, the funny thing is, Ralf Rangnick had said so many things about Manchester United, yet this board decided to get rid of him and keep Murto and Arnold. Because Ralf Rangnick would not have been a Glazer puppet. Ralf Rangnick would have said it as it is to the Glazers and expected the answers to be to back the manager accordingly. He mentioned about players' contracts. He mentioned, you know, what we needed to do, open heart surgery. But the Glazers want a puppet, in essence. Murto and Arnold are exactly that. They are exactly that. Is it not Murto? Please correct me in the chat if I'm not mistaken. Was it not Murto who came out and said Manchester United love a bit of PR? We love PR. We love social metrics. And why would the Glazer, and this is why the ownership needs to change. I would absolutely, nothing more would I love for Ralf Rangnick to come back to Manchester United if the Qataris come in. Nothing more at all. Because he is the one who could have helped Erik ten Hag. And this stigma around Erik ten Hag didn't want to work with Ralf Rangnick is the biggest BS I have ever heard in my life. In my life. Because go and check the work that Ralf Rangnick has done, and also go and check the work that Erik ten Hag did under the likes of Mark Overmars, Van der Sar, people who actually work towards making a good organization, people who actually invest for the future. And these players that Ole Gunnar says he wanted as well, the Glazers clearly went against him and didn't give him the players. So it tells you, it clearly tells you there's a lack of sync between the managers and the board and the owners. And some people feel, there are fan base who feel that Murto and Arnold are doing their best. They're doing their best. What else can they do? They're trying to work under the constraints of the Glazers. But that's not it. That is absolutely not it. Listen, there's another bit that I want to get onto as well, and this one is a big news as well. Let me just bring it up, about Evan Ferguson. Let me see if I can quickly bring it up for you. A bid of 50 million for 18-year-old Evan Ferguson from Manchester United was laughed off by Brighton. Rob Dawson from ESPN reports. I wonder when that bid had gone in, but 50 million for Evan Ferguson is absolutely laughable. Absolutely laughable. What were you thinking? Why would you pay 50 million for Evan Ferguson, but then you went on to pay 85 million euros for Rasmus Højlund? Why? Like, again, this doesn't make sense. Where is the competence in the board? You paid 85 million for a 20-year-old who's nowhere near the levels that he needs to be for Manchester United. It's such a long-term process with Rasmus Højlund. I'm happy with the signing, but it's a huge long-term process. But if that's the case, Evan Ferguson, who's in the Premier League, who's performing so good, why would you not put a 70, 80 million pound bid? And I'm glad that Brighton laughed it off. I'm actually glad, because it tells you the incompetence of the board. It tells you that the board aren't able to negotiate. They aren't able to negotiate any deal buying or selling players. They overpaid for Mount. They didn't sell Anthony Martial. They couldn't get rid of Donny van der Beek. They couldn't get rid of Harry Maguire, and that's another one as well. Harry Maguire wanted money to leave, and if the Glazers had money in their pockets and wanted to help Manchester United, they would have paid Harry Maguire and let him go. But they didn't. They didn't. They bid 50 million for Evan Ferguson, but they paid 80 million for Harry Maguire. Make it make sense. Like, this is what I mean. Nothing adds up. Absolutely nothing adds up. And it's funny how Ole Gunnar says, I'm grateful for Ed Woodward for giving me the opportunity and he supported me. But again, in hindsight, he's saying 1 foot in, 1 foot out. He's saying, I wanted certain players and I didn't get them. So are you saying that because you didn't get certain players that you lost the changing room? Like, again, it doesn't make sense. There needs to be an open conversation here between Ole and the fans, because he's leaving out a lot of information. Absolute lots of information are being left out. Let me see. Let me go through a couple of the other chat as well. Admin, can I get a poll as well? I want to know what the people are feeling about the quotes that have come out on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Do you guys feel happy that Ole Gunnar has come out and spoken, or are you angry? Are you upset? Do you think it's unnecessary? I personally think it's unnecessary, but, you know, look, Andy Mitten has put it out there today, and obviously we're going and facing Bayern Munich. Manchester United is going to be trending on social media as from right now, from 9 a.m., 10 a.m., all the way until 10 p.m. 12 hours of Manchester United being trending on social media. But let's touch on today's game quickly as well. We're playing Bayern Munich. I'll be on the build-up and the forum as well. I hope you guys are feeling somewhat confident. I am. I know a lot of people are feeling down and out. They're feeling like we have no chance of winning. But look, I'm not going to give you a motivational speech this early in the morning. I'm not. But what I am going to tell you is Erik ten Hag started Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Weghorst, Bruno Fernandes on the right against Barcelona away, and managed to score 2 goals. I think if Erik ten Hag wants to get the fans back on his side, the fans especially that have question marks over him, because there are fans who have question marks over Erik ten Hag, and I understand why. But for him to really get the players to believe in the process, to really get the board, the club, the media to shut up as well, and those fans, he needs to get a result today. He really does. And it's the Champions League. It's the biggest of the biggest, and we must make the most of it. If we're not going to fight in the Champions League, then what's the point of being there in the first place? That's what I look at it. That's how I look at it. A lot of people are feeling that, you know, we're not going to get a single goal. It's going to be 3 or 4 nil to Bayern Munich. Well, look, anything can happen if you have Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford on the pitch. You know, anything can happen, injury, whatever. The luck could be on our side, but it's just we have to be having some belief, you know what? Part of me is actually happy that the Ole quotes came out because it gives me some sort of insight. I'm just not happy with the timing of it. 62% of you think it's been a good time and you're happy that Ole's spoken out, and a huge 38% feel like it's not a good time and you're not happy with the quotes that have come out. But we will see. We will see what happens. I am feeling excited. It's Champions League, Bayern Munich. Yes, their lineup is scary. Gnabry, Sane, Harry Kane, but don't forget, we have Marcus Rashford. We must believe in him. He might be one of the egos, and he must channel that ego into the training pitch, into the pitch today in Allianz Arena. We have Bruno Fernandes, the captain. We're missing a ton of players, But still, it's 11v11, and we go and fight. What's going to be interesting, though, is if Johnny Evans comes on the pitch. Ryan, if you're watching this, if Johnny Evans comes on the pitch and scores, I think I'm going to run around topless. On that note, that's been me, Faz, on today's morning show. Make sure to like the video if you haven't already. Make sure to comment down below once the video is live as well, and let us know what you felt about all the quotes that have come out. I think I'm in a catch-22. Some of the things Ole said I agree with. Some of the things I totally disagree with. He couldn't get the best out of Jadon Sancho. He bought him as a right winger. Now he claims he wants to play on the left wing. He claims there's ego still in Manchester United. He claims that the changing room was in disarray when he was there. He claims that that the board didn't back him, or the owners didn't get him players. But the fundamental is one bullet point to take from all of this, and I'll tell you straight. Ole Gunnar didn't mention once where he went wrong. He's not mentioned once. Is there any quote, producer, where Ole has said anything at all about what he did wrong? Has he got any accountability? Because I've run through all the quotes and there's not a single accountability from him on anything. So, again, that tells you everything you need to know. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer threw Ronaldo under the bus, but didn't say anything about Harry Maguire. He says he hopes Harry Maguire turns it around. But he said Cristiano Ronaldo, it went wrong. And that is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a manager. Incompetent, shifting the blame on other players, shifting the blame on this person, that person, and not taking accountability. He signed possibly the worst player for Manchester United ever. And I don't care what you guys say, because it's not abuse. It is blatant fact. It is blatant in front of all of us. You paid so much money for a centre-back that you didn't get nothing out of, yet you dare throw Cristiano Ronaldo under the bus. Incompetence. Ole incompetent Solskjaer. That's what you are. And if you want to have an open conversation, I welcome you on the United stand. And you know what? I'll even give you my set of questions beforehand. I'll give you the set of questions beforehand and come and have a conversation. Because how could you not say anything about Maguire's, whole career in Manchester United, but you're saying you hope he turns it around? And you say he did well. He uplifted the mood. He had a good start. All of this. And when Ronaldo gave you all of those goals, what do you say about him? Well, it didn't work out. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. And I'll catch you on the Build Up Show.